I'm sitting here waiting to film the video. Really just waiting for this Red Bull to hit my system. Look who's behind me. Oh, she's grooming herself. We need to give her some privacy. In this video, I'm going to be telling you everything that I wish I knew before moving to New York City. If you're new to my channel, hi, my name is Lauren and I moved from Alabama to New York City a year ago, which is so crazy. Well, it's almost been a year. It's like in like 2-ish weeks, it'll be a year. I have learned so much by being in the city just for 1 year, so I thought it might be a good idea to give you like my opinions and my take on living in New York for a year and things that I wish I knew before moving here, because I feel like not a lot of people talk about it. So here I am, being your big sister. If you want to move to a big city, here is my personal take on things that I wish I knew beforehand. While I was planning out this video, I started thinking of so many things that I wish I knew. So if I don't mention it in this video, go ahead and comment down something that you wish you knew. Unless you stay where you were born and where you grew up forever, it's inevitable to be new somewhere and have a new experience and live in a different area. Yes, I've only lived in New York City for a year, but I feel like the longer that I live in New York, there's going to be new things that I think of every single day as I go on in my life, and as I explore different areas, I'll be thinking of different things. But as of now, these are things that I wish I knew. So let's get going and let's talk about things that you should know before moving to a big city. As we start this video, this obviously is my opinion and just things that I wish I knew before moving to New York City. Everyone has like different expectations, different opinions on things, especially when it comes to moving, your living space, where you move, where you live. That is so opinionated, and I think we can all agree that we all have different outlooks on so many things, and where we live is a really big part of it. So just putting that little disclaimer out there. I also have only lived in the state of Alabama for a majority of my life and only New York City for a year, so take with that as you will. This is like my first ever experience moving away from home, plus moving into a city, so hopefully you can find some of these things useful. First and foremost, if you are wanting to move to New York City, summer is going to be the most expensive and the hardest time to find an apartment. Summer here, it's booming in real estate. Everyone is moving here, all the prices are raised. So if you are moving to the city, it's better to move in a different season. Fall, winter, spring, literally anything but summer. I knew that, but I had just finished graduating college and we were staying with Will's mom for like a month before moving here, and we were ready to move into our new place, so we did end up moving here in the middle of August. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that apartments in New York City go super fast, and they do, especially in the summer. So something that I wish I would have done before moving here is get a long-term Airbnb and actually live in the city for a little bit before actually signing an apartment, because you don't know what neighborhoods you're going to like. People online are going to tell you like, oh, you're gonna hate this neighborhood, oh, you need to live here. People are going to base like your personality on where you should live in the city. Personally, we chose Manhattan. It's been great, but the neighborhood we chose just really wasn't the most convenient thing. I'm gonna have another video on that later on. So by getting an Airbnb for a month or a couple of weeks, it would have allowed me to explore more of the city and like the neighborhoods for a short amount of time, and given me time to tour the apartments. What I did do when I moved to New York City was I just stayed up here for a weekend to talk to a broker and tour apartments, which it was fine. We obviously found a cutie little apartment to stay in for our first year here, but I wish I would have like budgeted in to stay up here for a couple of weeks to actually explore the city instead of just jumping into a neighborhood in an apartment in an area that I really didn't know as well. Also, talking more about the apartment hunting, you more than likely will need a broker. Not saying that everyone needs to use one. Brokers here are very expensive. Majority of the time they take your first month's rent, so whatever your rent is, that's what you pay your broker, or they take like 10% of the final amount. Every broker that I've talked to, they just take your monthly rent, just like a one-time fee. Brokers here are very expensive, okay? To me, it's worth it. Not everyone feels that way, but it is so much easier having a broker in your corner. A lot of brokers have good connection and communication with different buildings around the neighborhoods that you're wanting to move into. When I first moved up here, I told my broker our budget, and he was actually able to get us a more expensive apartment for the budget that we were wanting, just because of his relationship with the building. So we actually have a cheaper apartment than what it's typically listed for. Brokers can also work with the building to get you free amenities, because a lot of the amenities here, they're not covered. So like rooftop pools in general, gyms, like anything amenity wise that's in the building, a lot of the times it's not covered in New York City buildings. So brokers can also get that covered for you or get you like a month free, something of the sort when it comes to amenities. It's just an added on cost. Moving to New York is very, very expensive. So I just kind of wanted to say that outright. I didn't know the deal with brokers and things like that. And a lot of the times, if you're looking on like Street Easy for an apartment in Manhattan, Queens, Brooklyn, wherever, you're probably going to be paired up with a broker anyway. So when we've been looking for our new apartment to move into in the next couple of weeks, we just decided to find a broker, and he has been just on top of everything. We've been able to tour apartments like back to back to back in one day, and it's been really great to have someone helping you with something as crazy as apartment hunting in New York City. Something I do wish that I would have done when we first moved here was tour more apartments. I didn't realize we were just touring apartments in one part of Manhattan. I didn't get the chance to tour other apartments in other neighborhoods, so I wish I would have toured more apartments. Also, in looking for an apartment, I wish I would have looked at things like food, grocery stores, how far away is the subway, coffee shops, like things like that. And you may think, oh yeah, like I'm automatically going to look at that. I don't know, maybe that's something that y'all look at immediately, but in New York, if you're looking at a map and you don't live here, things could seem very close by, but realistically, you need things walking distance or easily be able to get there by public transportation. That's something I didn't look at when I was living here. Yes, I know like a coffee shop is across the road because we walked past it, but I didn't see where the local Target was, the local grocery store, anything. So that's something that I wish I would have taken into account. And by looking at apartments the past like couple of weeks moving into a new one, that is something we've been looking at. Like, okay, can we walk to the grocery store? How long is that walk going to be? What is the food around there? Things like that that typically wouldn't be a big deal if you were just moving into another apartment that's not in a city, because typically you would have your car. We personally decided not to have our car here. It would have just been an added on expense, and it's honestly just not that worth it being in the city. Another thing, which is random, but I wish I was viewing the apartments also at night, which is something I could have done if I would have stayed here a little bit longer, like while touring the apartments, because apartment scenes during the day can completely change at night. Given where we are living right now, it's actually pretty dark at night. Like obviously the sun isn't out, okay, I get that. But like street lights, like things like that that you don't really think about. Typically if I go out at night, I have Will or I'm going with friends anyway. I'm typically not walking alone or doing anything alone at night just for safety reasons and privacy reasons anyway. But I wish I would have been able to see the apartment and what was going on at night before signing a lease. Speaking about being late night in the city, if it's late at night, this is just a tip, always Uber home. An overpriced Uber is worth your life. And I know a lot of people are going to have mixed feelings about this. Personally, I would rather be safe than sorry, especially if I'm in an area of Manhattan or anywhere in the city that I'm not as familiar with. I don't know what the area is like. I don't know the subway line, things like that. Like that is a hill I will die on. The longer I've lived in Manhattan, the more I've used the subway. But like I said, we didn't pay attention to where the subways were when we moved. So again, I'll talk about that in another video, but it's just very, very inconvenient for us at this time in this apartment. It will be changing in the next apartment. But especially if you're 21 plus and you're drinking, don't rely on public transportation to get you home. Budget in an overpriced Uber. The city will put you through the ringer, but you will come back stronger. At the same time that I'm saying that though, a lot of people that I have met in New York City, like born and raised New Yorkers, are so nice. So many people will try and scare you online saying that they're rough and they're mean and they hate you. And like that is so far from the truth. I feel like the online presence of like, oh my gosh, New York, so different than when you actually live here. I was so intimidated when I moved here because of what people were telling me online about New York City. I have met the sweetest, kindest people here. Like I would dare to say that I've met more nice people here than I ever did in Alabama. Our neighbors are amazing. Any worker that we've talked to, people that we've met at the gym or going on couple dates, like everyone is so nice. And no, I'm not just talking about like the transplants. I'm talking about people who are like born and raised here. Unless you're being a complete nuisance, like people aren't as mean as others make them out to be. I wish I knew about the winters. And let me kind of go into more detail about that. Everyone said that I wouldn't survive the winter here and it was just so horrible. And I thought they just meant temperature wise. Personally, I have been dying to live in a place with seasons. Alabama really doesn't have seasons. Like it's mostly just hot, warm, humid. You have like a teensy-weensy little bit of fall and then it's just like winter, like ugh, cold, drab winter, and then you just like get back into like the hot weather. Here we actually have been able to experience seasons, which have been so amazing. Like this is the first time I've ever experienced a fall, and just seeing the fall weather, the fall leaves, like it was just incredible to have. But when people were talking about the winter, I thought they only meant about the weather. I personally have never gone through seasonal depression. I didn't really know what that was because I lived in a state that was so warm and sunny majority of the time. So when I did move to New York, I really did struggle during the month of like January, February were probably like the worst months for me. Because I will say, like, when you're in New York for Christmas time, Thanksgiving, like, yes, it's still cold, like frigid, dark, gloomy, but you still have like the Christmas lights, you have the Christmas tree, you have like all this like joy and merriness in the city, which is amazing and so fun, especially your first year living in New York City and experiencing Christmas in New York. It's so beautiful. But it's when they take all those Christmas decorations down and it's just like gray, gloomy, cloudy. Like, I was not prepared for that, and no one like prepared me for that, and no one told me about that. People did recommend to get, I guess it's like a light that like mimics the sun to have in the winter. So the coldness really didn't bother me in New York for the winter. Like, yes, it was cold, but once we got like the proper like puffer jackets and like, you know, undergarments and stuff like to keep us warm, it really didn't bother me. It was just like the depression that followed it, just kind of like the sadness. Like, I had never experienced that before. So be prepared for that. Like, the winter is kind of like, you don't want to go out and do anything. At least I didn't. Like, I wanted just to stay in because it was like so cold and gloomy. After like talking to several people who live kind of like in this area in general for a majority of their life, it's just the thing that like northerners, I guess, in this area experience anyway. It's not just the city, but being from a southern state where it's majority sunny, like even in the winter, it's very sunny there. I wish I just was more mentally prepared for that. Get comfortable walking shoes before moving here. That is something I didn't do. I thought that my college shoes that I wore all the time, like walking on campus, would suffice, and they did not. I love Hokas. I think they're great. When I worked in the hospital, I loved having my Hokas. They were the things that got me through my 12-hour shifts. I just recently got a new pair of Hokas, like kind of like out with the old, in with the new tennis shoes, and oh my gosh, it is life-changing having those because you're going to be doing a lot of walking in the city, whether it be walking to work, walking to get coffee, walking to the subway, anything of the sort. Having comfortable walking shoes are very important. Now, don't get me wrong, there are events, there are nights, there are days that I do wear heels, wedges, kitten heels, things like that in the city, but you do want like a good pair of comfort walking shoes for the city. That also goes if you're just like visiting a city, I would say. Like, don't skimp out on the shoes. You need to find an escape from reality. So what I mean by that is finding something that still gives you like a little bit of joy and not so much of like the city life. So something that I've loved doing since moving here is biking on the West Side Highway. It is so freeing. It's so nice to have just like a bike path to be able to get some sunshine, get some wind, go outside and just do something. I also just love under the Brooklyn Bridge. I love picnicking or just hanging out, biking in Central Park. Things that just aren't your typical like New York City, because the city can be tiring. Like I said, it's gonna put you through the ringer. So you need something to actually do to give you that little bit of an escape. That's also why I picked up ice skating while I've been in the city too. It's been so nice to be able to do that hobby and just kind of like escape the city for a little while. As much as I love it, you do need that like little mental break sometimes. Overall, just being alert and putting your safety first. So whatever that means to you, if you're in a walk-up building, maybe that means getting additional security, like a Ring doorbell or like one of those like little, what is it thing, like the pole that is like up against your door. Even if you have a 24-hour doorman, still taking those proper precautions with a Ring doorbell or things just to make you feel a little bit safer, especially if you're living alone in New York City. I also wouldn't broadcast that you're living alone in the city because that could be like another thing in itself. But overall, just being very alert and aware of your surroundings, making sure you're paying attention when you're walking on the street. The longer you're here, the more you'll realize like you don't really need to use like your maps to get around. Like, you can figure it out pretty easily. You're going to figure out like what the streets are. You're going to find your way. Like, it's very scary at first because everyone makes it seem scary, but it's not. You're gonna get it. It's gonna be so good. I remember the first time I was able to make my way back home from like a pretty long walk, like I was walking to get like a little bit of an escape, like a little mind refresh. I remember standing there and I was like, I'm gonna try and make it home without my maps. I think it was like a month and a half into living here. I was able to make it back to our apartment without doing any Google Maps, and it just made me feel so accomplished and like, okay, I got this. Like, it's not as scary as it seems. But when you are walking, definitely just making sure that people aren't following you, paying attention to people like just sitting on the sidewalk. Like, you just never know what could happen. To me, I always think like worst case scenario when it comes to things like that, especially walking alone in the city. I get a ton of questions about safety and how I put safety first within living in New York City. Something I will say is trust your gut feeling. Like, you don't have to defend it. You don't have to explain it. If you're having a gut feeling, feeling, you need to listen to it. I don't care where you are, what's going on, who you're with, you need to listen to that gut feeling. You need to go home, you need to call somebody, like your gut knows. Your gut knows. And again, you'd rather be safe than sorry. Getting a rolling cart or a Hulken bag for groceries and like bigger trips, I was so convinced. I was like, I'm not gonna need one of those. Like I can do like my grocery store runs without one. No, I ended up buying one. I got a pink rolling cart and it has been life-changing. You're able to go to the grocery store and actually roll it and like put your groceries in it. Grocery shopping in New York is going to be very different if you didn't grow up in a city and like walking, doing like public transportation type thing. It's going to be very different. So having that rolling cart is going to be very helpful. They're everywhere too. Like everyone uses them around here. Also, your grocery store trips are going to be much smaller. Like what you get at the grocery store is going to be smaller, not just because you can't carry that many things back up to your apartment, but also something I didn't realize when I moved here was the refrigerators and the ovens are smaller. Now, this isn't in every single apartment, but when you start looking at apartments, take a mental note. Take a mental note because I didn't notice it until we moved here and I was like, oh my gosh, our fridge is half the size of a normal fridge. And our oven also didn't fit our typical pans that we put in there. We had to get like little small pans to put into our oven. It's just things you don't know until you've actually experienced them. And being able to experience things like that is so fun. Being new at something is fun. It's exhilarating. It's such a great part of your life. Don't let anyone make you feel bad for being new at something or being new somewhere. Everyone was like that at one point in their life. But that also means that you don't have to plan out your meals that far in advance because you're not going to have space for it. And you're also not going to be able to carry that many groceries up. I will say when we first moved here, we used Amazon, what was it? Amazon Fresh or something. Amazon had this thing where you can get groceries delivered from Amazon straight to your door. If you're in a walk up, basically meaning you don't have an elevator and you just walk up like 5 flights of stairs for your apartment, carrying groceries up 5 flights of stairs, you are very strong for that. Very, very strong for that. There's also other grocery delivery services all throughout the city too. We were getting so much promotion for them right when we moved into this apartment, but we found a system that works. We like going grocery shopping and buying like fresh produce at like a local market, but that is a little bit different from what I've experienced in the past. I'm typically a very late person, but moving to New York, I realized being late is so common and sometimes it's kind of inevitable depending on how you get around in the city, whether it be like subway, Uber, walking, biking, whatever. Certain things will happen in the city. You're gonna have roadblocks, you're gonna have like major traffic, things just go on, trains are late, things happen on the subway where like they have to close down for a moment. So plan accordingly. I remember when I first moved here, I was on my way to a brand event and I had to text my manager and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be 30 minutes late. And you're probably like, Lauren, how were you 30 minutes late? I don't know. There was a roadblock. I was just sitting in my Uber just waiting for this event like late at night. And she was like, don't worry, this happens to like majority of our girls in New York City. Like you're gonna get used to it. And I did. I realized that if it says it's going to take a certain amount of time, you need to budget in a little bit more to get there on time. Also, going back to trusting your gut instinct with things, I'm going to tell you like a little bit of a story time that happened to me just a few weeks ago. I was going grocery shopping and when I walked out, I literally was on a corner and I was like, do I want to explore more of this area? It was like a newer area I really didn't know a lot about. So I was sitting there with my groceries and I was like, should I try like a different coffee shop around here? I've been doing a series on YouTube Shorts and Instagram and TikTok called Lattes with Lauren where I try different coffee shops in the city. I was like, this seems like a perfect area to stop and like get a cup of coffee. I decided for some reason, I was like, no, I'm just gonna get a taxi. I'm just gonna get a taxi and just go home. Hop in a taxi. Literally within 10 minutes of me getting in this taxi, some person on that exact corner got like slashed by some random person. Like this, I saw it on TikTok later on that night. And when I found out, it was in the span of like 10-15 minutes by the time I left that corner from when this man literally got slashed. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Overall, just mind your business. Like, and when I say that, you know, I always say like mind your business. No, like really mind your business. Like if there's someone doing something weird on the road, on the street, sidewalk, you don't see them. You just keep walking. If someone's screaming, yelling, weird words or weird things, you don't know they're there. You don't make eye contact. You just mind your business. Everyone acted like when I moved here that everyone just cares about so many things in New York. No one's gonna stare at you and glare. And if they are, they're probably tourists just kind of like exploring the area, just like looking at different things. If you're taking some pictures, no one's gonna be staring at you thinking you're weird. They're not. They are on a mission. They're minding their business. They're not paying attention to you. If you have on a different outfit than normal, no one's gonna notice. Everyone's minding their business. I wear pink almost everywhere I go, and I don't get any extra stares. People are minding their business. They are not paying attention to you. They are just doing their own thing. There are so many different types of people in the city. Like, you are free to be whoever you want to be. You can love whoever you want to love, and that is something I love about the city, is everyone here is chasing something bigger than themselves. They're chasing after dreams. They're trying to become a better version of themselves, and you can see that a lot of the time in the city. So don't be afraid to be exactly who you are meant to be. Don't let the city change you in any way. Don't let other people change you. Like, you are you, and that's what makes you so beautiful, and a city shouldn't change that at all. Do I think that you can grow in a new area? Absolutely. You can grow where you're planted, but don't think that you have to change the way you look or the way that you talk or the way that you dress, anything to fit into the city. Even if you don't know where you're going, act like you know where you're going. Especially like when you first move here, don't make it seem like you're new here. Like, no one knows you're new here unless you explicitly tell them, or you act like, oh, I don't know where I'm going type thing. Especially in new areas, I'm always just like, I know exactly where I'm going. Even if I don't know where I'm going, I'm gonna continue walking with confidence with my head up high, like I know where I'm going. At the same time, don't walk slow on the sidewalk. Don't stop in the middle of the sidewalk. Just keep going. Keep moving, keep pushing, because that's when people will get mad at you, is if you just like stop in the middle of the sidewalk and just stand there, or if you're walking super duper slow. A lot of people have places to be. I'm a fast walker anyway. All of my friends in college, middle school, high school, they always call me the road runner because I'm just like, phew, I am going. I'm just like a fast-paced walker in general, but people will get mad at you if you just do that because you're kind of like in the way. Just a little bit. Also, something, if you're on an escalator, stand to the right side of the escalator. That way people who are trying to get through can walk past you. Don't block on the escalator, especially like going into the subways or stores. You want to make sure there's like a walkway for people to walk down. When you do move to the city, you need to make kind of a nook where you can put your coats, you can put your shoes, anything that you wear like outside. You need to have an area in your apartment right when you walk in. Some apartments will have coat closets, which is really nice. We have kind of like a little nook in the corner of like our entryway where we put our bags. Like, Will brings like a book bag every day to work, so he has his book bag he puts up there. During the winter, we would put our winter coats up there. And also, you're going to want a place to put your shoes. The city is so dirty. No matter where you are in the city, it's going to be dirty, and you just never know what's on the road, what's on the street, what you're walking on. So since moving to New York, we just have fully committed to put our shoes off right when we walk in, so no shoes are like tracking throughout our apartment. I also have like a cream colored rug in the living room too, so I obviously don't want like dirt or anything on that, but it's also just for like health reasons and like sanitary reasons. We also have a cat, Elle. So Elle, she had FIP for a little bit. I did a full story time on that, but I was like so worried about anything she was like going to be like inhaling, ingesting, like anything we could track in from outdoors, since she was like, her immune system was down for a while, especially when we first moved here. So having a little place, they have so many cute things on Amazon and other stores where you can actually like hide your shoes. It's like almost kind of like a dresser for your shoes, if that makes sense. The last thing I wish I would have known that I'm going to wrap this video up with is everyone's experience in the city is going to be different, and don't let other people's experience determine your own experience in the city. There are going to be people who love New York City. There are going to be people who hate New York City, and it's up to you to find that groove and to find your love in a new city or anywhere you move. I saw this comment on TikTok about a girl who didn't find joy and happiness in the city and decided to move out. And she said, "I'm so glad other people are finding the love that New York City has to offer that I could never find." And I think that that's so important to keep in mind, that some people are going to move to New York City and they're just going to end up not liking it, and that is completely okay. Some people are going to want to live here for the rest of their life. Some people are just going to want to live here for a season, and no matter what you want to do, it is your journey, it's your story. Don't let anyone take that away from you and take away your happiness and your love that you have for the city. Like I said when I first started this video, everyone has their own opinions and they have their own expectations on when they move to a new city or they experience something. So obviously come in with high hopes that you're going to love the city, but also know that your story is your own and your experiences are your own. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Everyone is just trying to make it. Everyone is just living their own lives for the first time ever. So you got it. Don't let other people intimidate you. Don't let the city intimidate you. And I would also suggest getting into something to make friends when you're here. The city is so much fun when you have friends to enjoy it with, to have coffee dates. Maybe it's a couples date type thing, doing hobbies that you can meet new people, having people in your corner and in a new city, especially if you're far away from home. It will help having those people on hard days, during the hard winter, everything of the sort. If you've made it to this part of the video, if you have lived in a city, comment down something that you wish you would have known before moving to the city. And if you haven't lived in a city and you've just made it to this part of the video, go ahead and comment down any sort of New York City emoji that you want. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. And if you want to join the family, you can click that subscribe button also. I love you guys so much, and I'll be seeing you in my next video. Bye!